What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for March 16th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Sunday edition of the podcast. Easy like Sunday morning, as my buddy Lionel Richie always says. Let's start off with some quick housekeeping, though. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to sit down with author Lenny Wagner. His book, Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Era of Sports, is about Walter French, who was from New Jersey. And this dude's story is incredible. Lenny reached out to me, wanted to discuss his book and just talk about Walter. So it was very fun. Hung out with him for about 30, 40 minutes yesterday. I'm in the process of cutting it up and figuring out how to present some of the key points of the interview. This dude was amazing, played professional baseball for the A's, won a World Series. He was on the Pottsville Maroons, the team that won the NFL championship but had it taken away over some BS territorial things because they played an exhibition game against the Notre Dame All-Stars. So just one of the first guys to play professional baseball and football before Bo Jackson, before Deion Sanders, before Brian Jordan, and won a championship, even though the NFL doesn't. But we'll get more into that once I cut up the interview. But had a good time hanging out with Lenny. And if you want more information on Lenny or the book or even Walter French, go to playingwiththebest.com. As I said, he has a couple book signings coming up. The information for all of that is in the description as well. But I'm looking forward to kind of doing a package in the coming weeks on Walter French. But if you have a chance and you're not doing anything, or you're sitting on the couch scrolling through your phone today, look up Walter French, man. This guy's story is incredible. It was almost like the sports equivalent of Forrest Gump. Just the people that this dude knew and played with and worked with and everything. And he's right from in our backyard in Moorestown, New Jersey. So go check out Walter French. Go to playingwiththebest.com to find out more about Lenny, as well as what Lenny's up to as well. But had a good time with him. Looking forward to sharing all of that. And everything you need is in the description. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. That is where you find all the latest and greatest things that I'm doing. Eventually, I will put the full interview once I get it edited up on the YouTube channel as well. And then continue to spread the word. This is a grassroots movement thing. Lenny found my podcast, reached out and said, hey, I think this would be a good sort of fit. And it was, like I said, Walter French is just an incredible dude. So look him up. But those are the types of things that kind of get us going and help spread the word about this podcast. All right, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. And lots of discussion on this one. I asked you, which Philly sports legend, player, or coach do you wish would have won a championship? 40% of you said it was John Chaney. I have a feeling that is because there's a lot of Temple guys in my audience. But Matt from Fort Washington checked in and said it's impossible. You should have done players or coaches. Probably right. However, personally, I can't think of any other coach other than maybe Dick Vermeil than John Chaney that is kind of a legendary coach that you wish would have won a championship. I had a couple people reach out and say about Phil Martelli and Dunphy. And those two guys, like I said, I don't necessarily consider them legends. I don't consider either one of them on the John Chaney kind of plane of things. So somebody said Gene Mauch. 100% don't agree with that. Gene Mauch is the reason why the 64 Phillies collapsed, so he deserves nothing. And by all accounts, I heard he was a dick anyway, so don't agree with that one. But Chaney did win with 40% of the votes. Lots of Brian Dawkins, and I think really, if you take Chaney out of it, I think 100% of people would say either Brian Dawkins or Allen Iverson would be the two that you wish won a championship. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. I love when the questions spark discussions like that. And Matt, it was meant to be an impossible question to ask. And it led to somebody saying Gene Mock. Can't get on board with Gene Mock for that one. There will be another question of the day later in the show. The Philadelphia Union returned to action this afternoon to play Nashville down at Subaru Park. 3-0 so far. This is a huge game for them in the sense that they have a lot of momentum going, but 6 of their players after this game will be leaving for their national team duty, including Gazdag, Ty Barabo, and Andre Blake, the 3 probably biggest stars on the team. So it will go a long way for the MLS season if they could get this win and kind of stay afloat while the national guys are doing their national team duty. But good to see the Union. I'm debating. I got to talk to my daughter when she gets home from my in-laws tonight. I'm debating whether to get the MLS package because she's really into soccer, which by proxy, that means I'm into soccer. So she's a huge Messi fan. So I'm like, maybe I'll get the Apple TV package and then be able to be able to watch all the Union games and really stay up on them. And who knows, maybe if there's any accountants out there, can I use that as a tax write-off since it's for business? Maybe. Not sure if that's how that works or not. But Union Nashville today, I think that's like a 2:30 game at Subaru Park. Flyers, hammered last night. Absolutely hammered. 5-0. Finished their homestand 1-6. And I think we can all but officially put the fork in their wild card hopes. They're 8 points back. They have like 6 teams that they have to jump over. I think it was a lofty goal. I don't know if some of this is because of the coach, which is going to be one of the biggest offseason stories for the Flyers, or what. But because of the way our winter teams are, we do have our draft tracker. They currently are sitting in the 6th pick, and they are moving down fast. So it's possible the Flyers could end up with a top 5 pick in this year's draft, which as a team that's rebuilding and Danny Briere and Keith Jones have a plan, might not be the worst thing. And then especially if you can get the right coach in here to coach them. Don't know if Tortorella is the guy for the job, but that will be one of the big offseason stories we follow. Sixers, your team, your town, your 76ers are in action this afternoon out in Dallas. I don't think anybody's playing. I don't think anybody should play. They currently are a half game back of the Nets for the 5th seed in the draft or the lottery. They're only it's going to be come down. They're going to battle, and it's probably going to come down to one of those last games because Toronto is right there. The Sixers are up 2.5 on Toronto for the 7th. So the more we lose now, as the season winds down, the better it is. But I honestly, I don't know if anybody's even going to trade Paul George. That's like the prevailing thing that, this offseason the Sixers are going to trade Paul George. Who's going to take him? If you want to let me know your thoughts on that on the Back to the Future voice and text line, feel free. I feel like it's at the point now that nobody's even talking about them, and it's like the worst thing. At least when they were going through the process and tanking and all that other stuff earlier, people were talking about it and hoping for who could they pick up and things like that. I don't even think anybody cares. But Sixers, Mavs this afternoon down in Dallas. Phillies tied the Tigers. You got to love ties in spring training baseball. But Trey Turner did lead off, did go 1 for 2 with an RBI. I really like. I've been saying it. I think they're going to attempt to put Trey there, but I still think we're going to end up seeing Schwarber in the leadoff spot by the end of the season. But the pitching staff has been doing well. Zach Wheeler went 5 innings, struck out 3, didn't give up a run, which he's just a stud. I would love if we're not going to be able to make a World Series run this year, which I'll get into in a couple weeks. Actually, less than a couple weeks. The Phillies preview I kind of have 2 days set aside for that. But I would love to see Zach Wheeler win the Cy Young this year. Kind of that's where we're at with the Phillies right now. Jose Alvarado still looks like a stud. 3 Ks in 1 inning of work. Ryan Kerkering looked good as well. So those 2 guys, especially Strahm, has had some shoulder issues this spring training. So those 2 guys are going to be key for the bullpen, because I think starting pitching wise, the Phillies are going to be fine. It's going to come down to the bullpen. They're going to score runs, and I think those 2 guys specifically in the bullpen, it's time for them to kind of take that next step. But again, the week of opening day, I have the 2 off days, like in between spring training and the game against the Nationals. We'll do some Phillies preview, so stay tuned for that. Mekhi Becton will not be returning to the Eagles. He signed a contract with the Los Angeles Chargers. Still feels weird to say Los Angeles Chargers, but I digress. However, by him signing with the Chargers, the Eagles now have compensatory picks in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds of this draft. They have 12 total, and it looks like they're going to have 5 picks in the top 100 picks of the draft. So Howie, for all that we were upset that these guys were leaving, that he traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson, knows what he's doing. 5 of the top 100 players in this draft are likely going to come to the Eagles. If they keep all 5 of those picks, they might package it and try to move up. I'm looking forward to the draft to see what Howie can do. Wouldn't mind trying to trade up into the top 15, possibly even the top 10 with all those picks. But we will stay tuned and keep an eye on what Howie has up his sleeve. All right, so have to go with some disappointing news now. Well, first of all, I don't think the first piece of news is that disappointing for Villanova fans. Kyle Neptune was fired. I don't think that is a surprise to anyone. They need to get somebody in there. It's crazy how much that program fell off after Jay Wright. They were coming off a year in which they went to the Final Four. Jay Wright's like, I'm done. Kyle Neptune just looked like a deer in headlights for how long was he there? 3 years, 4 years. Just looked lost, overwhelmed. I think they kind of gave it to him because he was an in-house guy, but I think in order to compete in the Big East, they need to get a big name in there, and truthfully, to compete with the SEC, which those teams, if you've watched any of the SEC tournament, those teams are like semi-pro teams. That league is just so good. But Kyle Neptune not coming back to the Villanova Wildcats, so they will have their search. Unfortunately, Drexel women lost yesterday, got blown out. St. Joe's lost yesterday, got blown out pretty much. They got off to such a horrible start. They did battle back, but it was just they spent too much energy battling back. So the Big Five now is 0 for 6 men's for the 3rd straight year. No men's Big Five teams will be in the NCAA tournament. First time, I believe, in history that it's been 3 straight years. I know last year was the first time ever that it was, I think it was like only the second time ever that it was 2 straight years. I will look that up and confirm for tomorrow, but I think it's the first time ever in the history of the Big Five that none of the teams are going to the tournament. Drexel's not going to the tournament. And this stat is even more depressing. With the Drexel women losing yesterday, this is the first time ever since the women's tournament started in the 80s that the Big Five, or the Big Six, whatever you want to call it, has no teams on the men's or women's side going to the NCAA tournament. Let that sink in. Philadelphia, back in the 60s and early days of the NBA, was a hotbed. And if you go back even further with some of those pro teams that would pop up out of the Ys, you had the Spas, you had the Warriors, a lot of the Black Five teams. We talked a lot about Tarzan Cooper and those guys. Hotbed for basketball. It's falling on hard times, very hard times for the Big Five. And the fact that there is no team from Philly going to the NCAA tournament, men or women's, for the first time ever. It's depressing. So that leads to today's question of the day, and I'm anxious to see. I have a feeling, depending on what generation you're in, that's going to determine how you answer this. But is Big Five basketball dead? Is Philly basketball dead? I hate to say it. I think the only chance is going to be what Villanova does with their next coach. But I hate to go here because college basketball is so awesome. Going to Temple, and I talk all the time about just how great it was during the John Chaney era. I don't see us ever getting back there, especially in the landscape. Now, things are going to kind of level off, I think, once there's some regulations and things with NIL. But I think Philly basketball is dead. And that's not even including the professional team. So what are your thoughts on that? Is Philly college basketball dead? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. And if you want to let me know, does the Big Five even matter anymore? There was a time, especially in the 80s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, actually. And like it was the must watch, must see. And I think, unfortunately, I think it's over. But let me know your thoughts on the Big Five and Philly college basketball. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Go to clashingconferences.com, see what they have to offer. Sports Fan Network is alive and kicking. They are growing. Love that, what they're doing over there and just being associated with them. So go check them out, clashingconferences.com. And then do some shopping here on a Sunday. I think it's supposed to rain later, so you're not going to be outside doing much. So go do some shopping from your couch. Check out Walter French, and then go to Philly Goat, buy some gear. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, today we are going to go back to 1985. And on this day in 1985, the Flyers beat the Maple Leafs 6-1. It was their sixth straight win. They were in the middle of closing out the season, though. 16 of their last 17 games they won to go into the playoffs. The team got hot. But this game against the Maple Leafs, 6 different players scored, including Ron Sutter, who scored the Flyers' 5,000th goal in team history. They became the first team from the 1967 expansion to go over the 5,000 goal mark. And going into last night's game, and the math here is easy, but going into last night's game, if you're keeping score at home like I know you always do, the Flyers are currently 8th all-time in total goals with 14,485. That's an average of 3.2 goals per game, slightly less after last night's game. I was worried about, that's why I put in the caveat in my notes, going into last night's game. But when you get shut out, it's easy. So they're still at 14,485. But that 84-85 Flyers team got hot down the stretch. Great goaltending by Pelle Lindbergh. Made that run to the Stanley Cup Finals before losing to the Edmonton Oilers in 5. But on this day, it was the Flyers beating the Maple Leafs 6-1, their sixth straight win. 6 different players scored a goal, including Ron Sutter, who scored the team's 5,000th goal, becoming the first expansion team to reach the 5,000 mark. They currently still are sitting at 14,485, though. And then finally today, our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight is Kamesha Hairston from Temple. She played there from 2003 to 2007 and was one of the best to ever play up on North Broad. She was a part of 4 NCAA tournament teams. She was a 3-time Atlantic 10 champion. She was the A10 Player of the Year in 2007. She was a 2-time All A10 selection. Big Five Player of the Year in 2007 as well. She actually, in that 2007 season, was an honorable mention All-American. She did get drafted number 12 overall to play for the Connecticut Sun in the WNBA. She played 2 years there, went over to Europe for 3 years, but a nagging knee injury from college she basically, I saw in an interview, she said it was like I was playing on one leg. So she had to hang up her shoes. Big Five Hall of Fame inductee in 2019, Temple Hall of Fame in 2020. She's currently back home in her native Ohio, coaching high school sports, but a promising career in the pros taken away due to a nagging injury. But Kamesha Hairston, you are today's Big Five Women's Hall of Fame spotlight. Temple's own, one of the best to ever play, and just part of it, like I remember during that time, the tournament runs under Dawn Staley, those teams were fun to watch. But Kamesha Hairston, today we salute you. On this day in 1985, Flyers beat the Maple Leafs. Ron Sutter scores the 5,000th goal in Flyers team history. Way more than they scored last night. We'll have more on the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers tomorrow. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on Philly basketball. Is it dead? It's not looking good, I'll tell you that. But be sure to check out Lenny Wagner. Go to playingwiththebest.com. Do some research on Walter French. We'll start spotlighting him here in a couple weeks. But just a very, very interesting dude. So go check that out. All right. I don't know. It's kind of one of those days. Usually Selection Sunday is, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm still excited about it. But there's going to be no live shots from any of the Philly schools to see where they're playing. It's kind of depressing. Hate to leave you on a sad note like that, but this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 16th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Sunday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.